What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 590 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Robert E. Felice.
Hello.
And Callum Wiggins.
But what's the story of this week's episode?
That's right. What is the story, Tony?
The story is the Batman. No, I'm not going to get into the nighttime story. Instead, we are doing a combo edition of this episode. We normally would do these two separately, but we kind of realized that, hey, the main event that we normally do the week before WrestleMania, we kind of can't do a full episode this year because WWE has not actually bothered to make the Hall of Fame as much of a thing as it normally is. So usually what we do is an episode of what we call Wrestling with the Past. And in that, we talk about the 8 to 12 or whatever members of the Hall of Fame that are going in. We talk about the legacy members. We talk about all the tag teams and so on and so forth. And we have a full, hour and a half long, 2 hour long discussion about all our favorite memories and favorite matches and blah, blah, blah. Well, we only have 3 people going into the Hall of Fame so far this year. And by the time we figure out maybe a 4th, maybe a 5th, it's going to be past the hot tags anyway. So instead, what we were doing is we are doing the hot tags and we're doing Wrestling with the Past. And we're combining that also with a little mini edition of One More Match. Again, that's normally a thing that we would do a separate thing for. Hey, one more match, Rey Mysterio, but he's still wrestling. So that's another, kind of just, hey, let's figure out another way to do it. So we are combining everything all in one big mega edition. And as we go along here and we tell you all the things that we're going to be telling you, we talk about all the different topics. We want to know what you have to say. So chime in with your thoughts in the comments below on YouTube. While you are over there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that already. Also, ring that little notification bell because next week, man, we're going to be hitting you with so many different pay-per-view point episodes that you need to be aware of when we go live for them because we are going to have, 5 live shows, I think, if that's the case. So we're going to have the ROH thing. We're going to have the 2 Nights of Mania. We're going to have the Stand and Deliver. We might even just do predictions live or something just to be like, hey, look, save some time and whatever. I don't know. We're going to fly by the seat of our pants on those. And I don't know how that works logically, but somebody figured out that phrase in the past. And of course, if you want to help support us and you want to make sure that we're doing more content, you want to make sure that we got more time to do all this different content and all, then there are so many different ways that you can do that. Like there's another little button that's there on YouTube that you should see right now. It's a thanks button. It's a little tip jar essentially. Make sure that you also click that little join button that's next to subscribes because that's the exact same thing as the Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/smarkoutmoment, you'll see the same tiers that you can see on the YouTube channel membership, including the Darkcast, which we have one up from the previous week. We got the Pick Your Poison, which you could always request at any particular time. And, of course, even $1 a month goes a long way in helping support us. And if you want to pick up some merchandise as well, Redbubble and TeePublic are where you can find those, not only for Smark Out Moment, but for Mango Tees and for the Fanboys Anonymous content out there. So if you want to get something like a coffee mug that says one-way ticket to Pound Town, where you want to get a bath mat that's a joke about something on the Fanboy side of things or something, there's plenty of different options, lots of designs, lots of products you can slap them on. And of course, before we get too deep into talking about specific hot tags, let me remind everybody about 2 things that are going on for the website right now. One of them being the Dusty Rhodes Road to WrestleMania contest that we've got going on here, sponsored by fun.com. You've got the opportunity to win one of 3 different Funko Pops of Dusty Rhodes that are being given away here. So lots of different chances to win. Very easy to enter the contest through retweets and subscribing here on YouTube and being a part of the Patreon and everything. Picking up a t-shirt ends up giving you, I think it's like 10 or 20 different entry points per purchase. So that's another thing too. So combine everything up. If you ever wanted to get a Smark Out Moment t-shirt, for instance, if you do it now, hey, you might actually win a Dusty Rhodes Funko Pop to go along with it too. Keep all that in mind, everybody. That is going to be running up until about a week after Mania, at least a couple days after Mania. I'm not too sure when I'm ending it. But that's going on right now, including the first of our hot tags here, which is the Smark Madness tournament. We have been trying to settle what is the best pro wrestling family dynasty of all time. All these royal families like the Rhodes and the Anoa'i and all. That's what we're focusing on this year, and we are currently on round 3. Now, normally we record this on Fridays, and since we're doing this combo edition, we're not shutting off the poll right now. It's still going to continue at least until the end of tonight. So if you're listening to this after the fact and you're like, oh my God, I forgot to vote, you still got some time. But we are on round 3. It's going to end by tonight, and the results from round 2 that we are going into that, we had talked about the last time around, but this time the matches were Anoa'i versus Orton, Finlay versus Flair, Hart versus Guerrero, and McMahon versus Rhodes. Now, technically speaking, of course, this could all change, but as far as the current breakdown of the responses have gone, it's pretty handedly going in one direction for 3 out of the 4. So I got a feeling that it's unlikely that those others are going to lose, at this time around. Right now, Anoa'i is beating Orton with 75.9% of the vote. Finlay, it doesn't have a chance against Flair. There's only 1 vote for Finlay. That's 96.6 in favor of the Flair dynasty. Hart is beating Guerrero with 75.9% as well. But it is really close when it comes to McMahon and Rhodes. That is only a 5-vote difference between the two right now, and currently in favor of Rhodes. What do you guys think about that? We're looking at pretty much Anoa'i versus Flair, and then Hart, at least right now against Rhodes, but it still could be against McMahon.
This tournament is trending in the proper direction. I do think it's unfortunate that Finlay is losing to Flair on sheer name value alone, because in terms of dynasty, I think the Finlay dynasty has had more consistency than the Flair dynasty. But that's a sheer name thing and name only. And I would say that everything else is shaking out about right. I think Rhodes are neck and neck with McMahon because of the emphasis on the Rhodes lately. And it probably makes them feel more grand in the scheme of things. And it's shaping out about us how I would thought it would,
Yeah, it's trending towards the final that we all expect is going to be, but we'll see again how the semi-finals pan out. Whoever is involved in it, we kind of pretty much know 3 of them. It's nice to know that I was the guy that voted for the Finlay over players, so that's it's nice to be different. It's nice to stand out.
Let that be a lesson, kids. Your vote does matter.
I assume that it's going to go in the direction that we think it's going to be. But it's nice to see that the Rhodes and McMahon one is going to be a little bit tight at the very least.
Yeah, with only a couple votes of a difference right now, by the time that I switch the poll over at I might do it midnight or something. Maybe it'll be a tie. Maybe it'll end up being at least a little bit closer. Maybe we'll actually end up having the McMahons beat the Rhodes, but I'll spoil again what I'm going with. I'm going to vote Hart over McMahon or Rhodes next time around. So as far as I'm concerned, it's Anoa'i versus Hart still. And I, of course, will let everybody know what that's going to be next week when we get into the hot tags for, I don't know how we're going to do the hot tags next week. I'm currently thinking the game plan will be to do the hot tags as a separate thing on Friday. We might do it live. We might not. In the afternoon, I don't know. With the ROH thing and with the Hall of Fame and SmackDown, I kind of think we might do a live watch along. But if that starts at 7, and I don't know, it could be a mess. So we'll let you guys know when we know. But at least as far as the Smark Madness tournament is concerned, we're going to be rolling over into round 4 sometime on Friday. So we'll kind of keep you posted on all that. And let's start getting into some of the other hot tags that we've got going on here. We're going to kind of either jump in with the Wrestling with the Past midway through, or we're going to save that for the end. We haven't quite figured it out yet. We're going to see how this flows. So let's go with something that is about WrestleMania and the idea of this sort of, we still haven't gotten confirmation stuff. We're only a few days at this point away from Mania, and we still don't know what's going on with Bray Wyatt. Now, all I'm seeing online, and of course you had to take everything with a grain of salt because WWE doesn't want to actually specify what the hell is being said and what's being, clarified and all. It just seems like it's like, okay, well, there's some sort of illness that Bray Wyatt is dealing with. And that's vague enough that it could be anything from COVID, or it could be completely unrelated to that. Just sort of like, who knows? There's a million different illnesses that are out there. But they have not done anything to build this feud ahead of time. And they have not continued to tell the story. So I am really getting a feeling at this point that Bray Wyatt's out for Mania. If you had to pick when it comes to the idea of, prediction wise, do you guys at this point think we're getting Bray Wyatt wrestling at Mania, or do you think that he's out?
I think Bray Wyatt will appear at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think Wyatt will be there, and I think he'll actually wrestle Lashley.
Well, the backup plan, according to some people, is that if Wyatt is out, which at this point, I think we all are kind of hoping, at least, when it comes to that, because it's just like this feud's been garbage anyway, so why bother? The match probably isn't going to be all that good. The potential backup plan could be LA Knight goes up against Bobby Lashley. Now, that doesn't have any build either, but I'd wager that it's just as good, if not better. Because if you really think about it, what was the build from Bray Wyatt? He said, I want to fight either Lashley or Lesnar. And then Lashley, essentially for a couple weeks, said, sure, I'll fight Wyatt or anybody else. And he beat the crap out of Uncle Howdy. LA Knight has been going around saying you can't have an LA WrestleMania without LA Knight. And he's trying to find a spot on the card. You could very easily just have Bobby Lashley being like, yeah, I was down to fight anybody. And LA Knight being like, yeah, I'm down to do anything as long as I'm on the card. And either one of them can do an open challenge. And then the other one answers it. That's pretty simple. It's not good. They should be building towards Mania in a way that, like, at the very least, by the time you get to around Survivor Series, you should know the majority of your card of what you want to build to. And then when you're at Royal Rumble, you should have it pretty much set in stone. From January onward, my mind is set. You should have Mania like locked in. You should be telling the story for 2 months of every part of the card. And the only reason why you should deviate is if somebody gets injured. Obviously, Bray Wyatt, whatever he's dealing with, was not a part of their plan, but they did such a bad job to begin with that it doesn't seem like they had a plan to begin with. So I think that's just as good, if not better, of an option. And frankly, it's what I'm hoping for at this point. Would you guys rather see LA Knight versus Lashley, or would you rather see the Lashley and Wyatt thing play out?
I'd still rather see Bray Wyatt utilized, because I think that the more time Bray Wyatt is away, the more we risk another reset. And I don't want another reset. I just want Bray Wyatt to do whatever he's going to do. LA Knight, I think I'd rather see him demand to be on the card and get his ass kicked by Stone Cold Steve Austin. But while there's nothing definitive that says Austin's going to be there, hell, I'd rather him demand a moment and he gets RKO'd by returning Randy Orton. Because there's also a report that Randy's going to be in LA. So I'd rather that than say Lashley ran through LA Knight and then they run that match back 5 times in 2 weeks. I don't see that. So I'd rather see Wyatt, Lashley, and then LA Knight does something special on his own.
Out of the two options, I would say that I'd rather have Bobby Lashley versus LA Knight as a match. But I would go for option number 3, which is I go to bed earlier.
I mean, if we were just going to straight up fantasy book things, I mentioned this a couple times now, but I would really just throw Lashley in the middle of Lesnar and Omos, because it's like there's enough there where it was already trending in that direction. We don't know what happened fully, but we do know that maybe they said, hey, Brock, fight Bray, and Brock said no, and they tried to piece something together. I'd rather just see 3 big guys just go crazy for 5 minutes, and then we move on.
What's confusing to me is it does kind of seem like they wanted Brock to fight Austin, and that they wanted to get the Lashley thing out of the way to make room for the Austin thing. But they did the shitty end to the whole Lashley and Lesnar thing to kind of keep it open. So if the Austin stuff was off the table, you would think that they would go, well, we didn't really do the finish to the Lashley and Lesnar thing, so let's just then do that match because we've got the time. And for them to pivot and be like, I don't know, I guess Bray Wyatt and Bobby Lashley, and then we'll figure something out for Lesnar, and then I guess we'll go with Omos. It just seems like they made a mess out of something that was very easily, you could have just continued the Lashley thing, and it wouldn't have been great to just be like, you did the thing at Elimination Chamber, and then you're continuing it, but at least it would have made a lot more sense than what we're getting.
I think that they had made up their mind that they were going to move on, and they were going to have Brock Lesnar do something else at WrestleMania. And they said, Austin said no. How about Wyatt? And Brock said no. And they said, well, we got this big guy. Would you like to slam him? Brock said, sure.
In that scenario, what do you think their rationality was to not have a finish to Lashley and Lesnar? Was it just like, well, we might come back to it in the future again and just drag this on for another year kind of thing?
It was just, Brock has an out because he's Brock and he can do whatever he wants. Lashley gets to be pissed that Brock chickened out again, and we just move on.
Just that whole, hey, wait, we're going to come back around to it. We're going to come back. We're going to come back. We're going to come back.
Brock is a big enough guy that they're going to kind of bend. He doesn't want to just do the job, so he didn't.
You think that they just didn't want to have Lashley lose?
Correct.
So it's like they set themselves up for like 7 different encounters where all of them were, and we can't actually settle on like a finish for this. So we'll just copy and paste that we can't do a finish.
Yeah.
You would think at this point that would be The Rock. The way that the Rock story's been going around this week. Yeah, I mean, if anybody's been following the stuff with Shazam and Black Adam and all, the Shazam, Fury of the Gods, look, I'll put it this way. I mean, everybody should know by this point how deep into like the superhero stuff I am. I still haven't seen it. I feel like I don't need to go to the movie theaters to see this movie, which is kind of crazy because obviously I go for everything. Like even if I went to Morbius on opening night, for fuck's sake. And that movie just looks like garbage. And it seems like one of the issues that's been going on with this whole Black Adam and Shazam thing is that The Rock didn't really want to play ball. He wanted to essentially not have anything that wasn't revolved around him. And with the way that his clause is with different movies, where he can't lose a fight and you have to like count the amount of times that he gets punched so he can punch the other person back the same. I think he really wanted to see the DCU revolve around Black Adam is the biggest and baddest and coolest guy. And he's essentially just The Rock and he can beat up Superman, which is crazy to me. Cause it's like Black Adam's not that important, motherfucker. Come on.
It really does seem like he just decided, I want to be involved in this superhero craze, and I should be because I'm The Rock.
It kind of does. And I mean, the Shazam stuff, I didn't see the movie yet, so I don't know how the movie is, but it seems like it's pretty poor. And they were supposed to have cameos from different people from the Shazam stuff in Black Adam, and then Black Adam was supposed to appear or some fashion in Shazam, and which makes sense because he's the primary villain for that, but it seems The Rock was the reason why that didn't happen. And now that got you pondering, at the very least. You were wondering, maybe The Rock isn't doing the thing.
Said, no, I don't want a job to Roman Reigns.
It could be it. They haven't been saying exactly what's been going on. We've had this match teased for years. And if you think about it, it's been teased even prior to 2015. And they just continue to say, well, you know, it's not happening this year, so I don't know why everybody thinks that it's going to. And then they put more and more teases for it. And this time around, you know, a couple months ago, it was just like, well, some people, which take it with a grain of salt, of course, say that he can't get in shape in enough time. Other people
don't get us wrong. Ring shape is different than just being a super big muscly man who eats pancakes on his cheat days.
Right,
yes.
But at the same time, it is like you did have practically a decade to get in shape for it. Like, come on, man, it's not like you're me trying to learn how to become a wrestler out of nowhere, like where I'm like, yeah, my asthma and my inability to fucking get out of bed with my back hurting kind of thing. It's a different story with that. Like, you're The Rock, you've done this before, you could do that. But maybe that is the case. Maybe the whole situation with The Rock and Roman Reigns was that The Rock didn't want to lose, and that nobody wants to just talk about it because they don't want to have that story come out.
It's not worth talking about,
And it doesn't do WWE any good to get that story out either. The Rock refused to show up because whatever, that wouldn't be beneficial. And it would kind of close the door on the idea of them potentially coming back to it again. I still think that they might do it next year, but at this point, it's harder to believe. But anyway, as far as The Rock is concerned and the superhero stuff, if you are into more discussion on the superhero side of things, make sure you check out fanboysanonymous.com. Obviously, if you check out the Facebook and Twitter and the website itself and all, the YouTube channel is up there. And on that YouTube channel, you can see things like the blueprint project that I have going on. I do not have notes for a Shazam blueprint because Shazam has never been one of my more favorite superheroes. But I mean, if you look at the graphic that's up on your screen right now, there's just a few of the things that I have. I've got everything from Daredevil and specific Justice League and Avengers type things and all, but been focusing a lot recently on the Batman, a nighttime story, 100 records from the Wayne Foundation archives. And chapter 2 of that is up right now, The Big Chill, where I break down the immediate fallout from the Wayne murders and how Bruce spends the next 10 years of his life. So if you are a Batman fan, definitely check it out. If you are not a Batman fan, I've been told by many people that have been checking it out that despite the fact that they don't really love Batman, that they're actually really digging the story, which is not only really great for me to hear because it's like, oh, hey, I do good job, like that kind of thing. But it's also nice to see that, I can figure out a way to translate that to people who aren't necessarily super big fans. So give that a view, check it out, hit the like button, hit the share button, pass that around. Get me a job at DC. Do that hashtag hire Mango DC Comics. Let's move on to another hot tag that's going on here as far as some contract stuff when we were talking about the idea of The Rock showing up and all. Let's talk about Goldberg. He is a free agent, which could mean any number of things. Goldberg has obviously been around for a long time. He is not in the prime of his career anymore, but he does pop up here and there for WWE, which means it's not outside the realm of the possibility that he pops up for another company. Could mean he just gets re-signed with WWE. Could mean he never wrestles again, and that's just the end of it. Where do you guys think we're going to see Goldberg next?
So, I think that the likelihood is that he won't wrestle again. That's just my assumption. But I am seeing a growing body of people, and I'm starting to be more inclined to agree with them, even though initially I was hesitant. That a run in AEW isn't the worst idea to end his career, because just look what they've done with Sting.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And what they're doing with Jeff Jarrett as well. AEW treats legendary wrestlers really well for the most part. And I think that a sprint run with Goldberg, where you just have him run through some jobbers for a little while, maybe get one notable victory and then lose to an MJF or a Powerhouse Hobbs or Wardlow. Yeah. Could be literally anybody, and then just call it there. I think that'd be kind of a nice way to put a little bow on it. But,
I think,
but it could literally go anyway because he has name value still. He could just show up for one show in Saudi Arabia at some point a year. So there's multiple different ways he could go. I personally think that he's probably done, but if he is coming back, it could be for anybody, and it could be for any length of time.
I don't think he's done. Last match was a loss to Roman Reigns. He ain't going out on a loss. I think you sign Goldberg to a 10-match deal in AEW. And if you think about the fact that you have him run through Kip Sabian in 20 seconds, run through Butcher, run through Blade, and then just like...
I'm surprised those are your choices.
Well, because you got to give him people... You got to make him be Goldberg.
Yeah, but I mean, that's so specific to be like Kip Sabian, the Butcher, and the Blade, instead of being like, you give him a couple jobbers or something,
No. You give him these guys because look what they did with Sting last night. And I think that you have him do some fun stuff with Orange Cassidy, probably in a tag team scenario or something. And then at some point, he teams with Wardlow for a match, loses to Wardlow eventually. Bada bing, bada boom, we're done. Goldberg's done, but he goes out with a really good run.
Maybe he loses to Jade Cargill.
Wouldn't be opposed to it.
You should definitely have if he goes to AEW, you should definitly have a segment with Jade Cargill at the very
least. Some kind of like, hey, I've been liking what you've been doing. Keep getting that number up, And
I think it's possible because Tony loves his WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Very clear, and I wouldn't be against it.
I actually I'd go so far as to say not only would I not be against it, that would be my preference. Because there isn't anybody in WWE that I am really interested in seeing Goldberg go up against. Like at this point, he's already had the big matches with pretty much everybody. I don't really care to see Goldberg against this incarnation of Bray Wyatt. I don't care to see him against Bobby Lashley again. I don't want to see another Lesnar match. I don't want to see another Roman Reigns match. Yeah, he could go up against Cody, but I'm not going to really get super invested in that. And I mean, what's the story there? Like, that's not something that seems to have a real good synergy in my mind. So, like, who in WWE is there even for him to go up against? Bronson Reed? Like, that's not it.
He would be the only one I'd be interested in.
Like, nothing like that really seems like it's like a must. But if you're going to go with the AEW side of things, I think that they can have a little bit more fun there. And I think Wardlow makes a lot of sense because he is in some ways a little Goldberg-esque. And if not Wardlow, I mean, they could, with him against Powerhouse Hobbs, he could have a match with Kenny Omega for all we know. He could have a match with Bryan Danielson. I mean, there are different options that they got going on.
He never wrestled Jeff Jarrett. I just want to put that out there. I just want to put that out there.
That's the end of it all.
Jeff would definitely be one of the ones he'd face in that run.
Oh, he absolutely would, David.
He'd have to. I mean, given the history of the WCW side of things, like he'd have to have some sort of a, it's Goldberg and Sting and Darby Allin in a 6-man tag or something.
I think done right, you could build towards Goldberg Sting.
Yeah, you could.
I think, and just based on that, like if they had a match and it was like, surely it would be better than the Goldberg Undertaker match.
You would assume it would. I mean, depending on if he bangs his head ahead of time or something.
Yeah, and as long as they're not doing it in like the absolute broiling heat of Jeddah or whatever it was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Goldberg do that rather than to just never appear again or to appear for WWE. He's done the WWE stuff. He's in the Hall of Fame. It is what it is. Just move on. Do the AEW stuff.
Way more out of the WWE stuff than I ever thought he would.
Yeah. So that's my preference. It seems like we're all in agreement there. We got a consensus argument thing. So Tony Khan, sign Goldberg, have him do a couple squashes, have him do, a year-long run or something like that. It doesn't need to be something that's some 5-year commitment or whatever, but
Actually, I'm going to caveat that quickly. Sign Goldberg if it makes sure that you have enough money in the bank to re-sign the Elite. If the Goldberg is the trade for the Elite, it's not worth it.
That's true. Worth it. I mean, yeah, you got to look at the overall numbers for that too. So let's talk New Japan, or specifically about Sanada.
Yeah. Yes. Sanada, mere days after leaving LIJ and becoming the 5th member of the new Just 5 guys, has won the New Japan Cup. Defeated David Finlay in the final. Finlay himself, I don't say the new leader of Bullet Club, but the new kind of face of Bullet Club in New Japan. And yeah, that means that he will be battling Kazuchika Okada for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at the upcoming Sakura Genesis show in early April. So,
do you think there's a chance that he actually wins the belt?
No,
I'm beating Okada, but like
that'd be crazy if he won that match. I thought it was crazy enough that he won the New Japan Cup. Now that he's part of a faction called Just 5 Guys, but yeah, he's I think that it would be insane to make him the world champion. He just doesn't. I mean, some people disagree, but I don't think he's ever had world championship caliber. Like, he doesn't have the charisma. He has the look, but it's just not good. I just don't think it would work. It screams of Evil becoming champion if they go his route again. And to anyone who has listened to this, when I talk about New Japan, Evil's probably one of the worst world champions they've ever had. So
I think Evil in the pandemic halted all the momentum that they were building for like the 3 years before that.
Mm. So I would not like him to become world champion. I'll put that on the record.
I think it's fair to say that some people look at Sanada the way that American fans look at Ziggler. Like, there was a time where you thought he could make that move if he could find the missing piece, and now just years have gone by, and he's the leader of, or he's a member of Just 5 Guys. So do we need Sanada as champion? No, but I just want to point out that upon hearing this news, I thought of the pun 5 Guys, 1 Cup. And at least a couple of people on Twitter seem to have enjoyed that. So there you go.
Don't Google that for people who don't know what this joke would be about. You don't want to see it. I mean, I'm not invested in Sanada just from not being an avid viewer of New Japan or whatever. But hey, I mean, maybe if he has a good match, maybe I'll check it out or something. I do not have plans on watching Sakura Genesis, but who knows? Maybe we'll do something about that. When is that actually happening?
What day in April is it? I think it's. Let me double check. I think it's April 8th.
Mercedes is going to be on that card.
Oh, so that's like
she's not on it at the moment.
It's not announced yet, but it's all signs point to Mercedes Moné being on that card.
That's like right around the corner. Then I thought it was maybe like the end of April.
Yeah, so it's the week after WrestleMania.
Ooh. Oh, I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll do some kind of thing. Maybe we'll at least do some predictions on the hot tags or something.
Talk about it on the hot tags.
Yeah. So stay tuned for whatever we end up doing when it comes to that. Something else that I do not watch, but it's worth talking about because there's a tie-in with pro wrestling, is The Masked Singer. I have not seen a single episode of this show. And
ever?
No, it's not my thing.
Even when you really like living without your, with your family and like they never just put it on, like that's not one of those things.
Nope.
Well, I envy you, sir.
But one of the judges is WWE legend Ken Jeong.
Yeah. He said Summerfest.
Yeah, the Summerfest. At the Summerfest. That's so bad. Yeah, Alexa Bliss apparently was revealed as a contestant, so that's where she's been for the past couple of weeks or so. And then on top of that, she had a basal cell carcinoma scare with something about her, like the cheek, her side of her face from tanning beds and all. Number one, obviously people don't use tanning beds. My God, like there's been years and years and years of this where everybody knows that these are horrible for you. Don't do that. It's like smoking cigarettes. If you're going to do it, you're going to get bad consequences out of it. Stop. So I'm glad to see that she got that taken care of. And this explains her absence, essentially. With these two things combined, okay, she's busy doing this Masked Singer thing. She's got this health issue that she needs to get sorted out. I guess she got like a piercing or something on top of that too, but that wouldn't be the reason why she wouldn't have been there. That's one mystery potentially solved.
Yeah, I haven't seen clips of her. I don't know if she was like any good.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only clip I saw in just like I heard because I just heard she was in The Masked Singer. Just like, okay, who was she? She was the axolotl. For anyone that's interested, that means she was wearing a costume of an axolotl. She wasn't she didn't just become an axolotl for the duration of the show. She said on one clip that I saw on YouTube, she sang Leanne Rimes' "Can't Fight the Moonlight."
I like that song, but if she did the more country version of it, then I wouldn't have liked it.
No, it was the actual version. It was the legitimate version, but she can't sing that well. I'll put it out that way. But it's not the worst person I've ever heard sing that song, probably. So,
that's right.
It's kind of at that level. It's like, I can understand why they picked her for this song, and it seems like she went into some sort of vocal training to at least get prepared for it. But she won't be hitting the charts anytime soon.
I mean, she's married to Ryan Cabrera. She's friends with NSYNC. I could see how she would want to do this. And
when you say she's friends with NSYNC, so she's friends with all 5 members of NSYNC.
She's friends with everyone that isn't Justin Timberlake.
Isn't the one member that everyone knows of NSYNC?
Like she's close to Lance, and I know Joey and Chris were also at her wedding. So like, there's enough here that I'm sure she has the connections to do this.
How does this thing work? Is it like, has she been this like axolotl for like weeks?
Yeah. I don't know whether they, again, I don't watch it, so I don't know if they're on every single week, but essentially and Rob, you got to tell me, because I assume you're the person here that's watched the most of it out of all of us, that it's essentially celebrities under a mask like a big costume, and they sing, and the job of the celebrities is based on their voice and a bunch of clues they give is to figure out who the person is.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like a cast of every like week, maybe they reveal like one of them or something.
But I will say as well, like some of this, in terms of like the standard of celebrity, and I don't, no offense to Alexa Bliss or a lot of people that have been on The Masked Singer, none of the judges know who the fuck you are. And they're being told if they do come up with your name, it's because the producer has gone into their ear and say, hey, you should probably say the actual person's name at some point, just to make them feel like they're actually worth a damn as celebrities, and they're not like creeping up the D list to just be on this show. Because she's not the first wrestler to have appeared on it, because I know Jericho's been on it.
That makes sense.
I think we even said that when Jericho was on. He was on the hot tag.
Yeah, we probably did. Yeah,
whenever that happened. But yeah, they can't. They're like meant to. The judge is supposed to be like, oh, could it be this person or could it be this person? It's like, no, none of them are going to say Alexa Bliss, are they?
Right.
Probably not. And I mean,
considering it's not like they're picking just singers.
And it's not her name.
Well, I mean, Lexi Kaufman
name is
too.
Lexi Cabrera technically, but
that's the point.
Yes.
But if they're pulling from everything, where it could be a tennis star, or it could be a social media person who's just on Instagram, or it could be a I don't know, fucking somebody who hosts CNBC or something like that, then it could be almost anybody. 2 episodes of Jersey Shore. Yeah, like if it could be almost anybody that has any name value to themselves whatsoever, then it seems like it really, the show exists only to be online. Like just to get people to tweet about, I think it's so-and-so, which that's not a bad marketing idea to begin with. I mean, it seems like they've had multiple seasons of this show, so I guess that's working. But again, that's another, this is season 9. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's one of the only shows that like genuinely people still
watch. Yeah.
Like watch. So
is that 9 years worth of it, or is it like multiple seasons per year?
I think they do multiple seasons per year.
I think it's been at least 5 years worth. I'll say that.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
But it has been going for a while, and it is like, I do hear people talk about it quite a lot. I mean, they have a Masked Singer in the UK as well. Like it's spread over internationally. So yeah, it's a big show for her to be part of. It's definitely built up her exposure a lot more. But yeah, I can't say that will entice me to tune in to see which one of the Bellas will be the next person to be on this show.
I just can't get into like the Garcias. I can't get into any of these kind of shows. Like any of these, I mean, I've said it a million times. I don't hero worship celebrities to begin with. So when the gimmick of a show is look at the celebrity, I don't care. Even if it's a celebrity that I like, Kevin Smith, I think is like super cool. I've watched his college speeches, like An Evening with Kevin Smith. I think that those are like fantastic. but I don't care to see that he would pop up on a show, or that like, oh, the Barmageddon thing, or our guest on this episode is some NASCAR guy and some TikTok chick or something. Like, it's not my thing. So on top of that, if you throw in the competitive singing thing, I also don't care about those. I haven't watched anything like America's Got Talent. That's the name of the show, right?
Yeah, that's what you were going for.
I was gonna say America's Top Talent, and then I was like, no, that's not right. And then I was gonna say America's Top Singer, and I'm like, no, that's not right either. Like I had watched like maybe like 2 or 3 seasons of that originally, way back in the day, and then I was just like, all right, I got the gist of it. I don't think I need to see any more. And I never really liked American Idol, any of that. So this isn't the crossover for me either. Every time that one of these shows comes up, we always talk about the target audience and the idea of like, hey, maybe people would watch this reality show about AEW because they're wrestling fans. Maybe they would watch this AEW show that's a reality show because they like reality TV or whatever. Me finding out that Alexa Bliss is on The Masked Singer does not make me want to watch The Masked Singer whatsoever. I still don't care.
You know? I enjoyed Jericho last season singing Smash Mouth All-Star. Just hard. About as badly as you could think. And he was also trying to throw people off by putting on a fake British accent. So, like, stuff like that I think is funny, but you hit the nail on the head when you said this exists largely for social media clips and for websites like Fightful to do Alexa Bliss unmasked on The Masked Singer. It's like, and that's fine. But it also exists for, you know, our parents who still just want to watch TV and think, oh, that was a fun little show.
Yeah, that's it's not only for that generation that's got the cable that they're hooked up to, but it's also a little lowest common denominator. It's like you turn it on, you turn it on, and you end up just being like, I shut my brain off for a half hour or 22 minutes because I got 8 minutes worth of commercials where the Pepsi commercial is going to pop up, or Mountain Dew is going to be like, hey, Mountain Dew, the new fuck you flavor. Here's a blast to your face, or whatever they, I don't know what they fucking advertise.
The fuck you flavor. It blasts you in the face.
You don't want to drink the fuck you flavor of that. And, Domino's runs some kind of an ad, and then at the end of it, everybody goes, all right, well, where did that half hour go? That's basically what it ends up being. I'm making a lot of enemies on this episode by just being like, if you watch this show, you're a fucking idiot.
I will say that in terms of like potential wrestlers going onto The Masked Singer, like I hope they actually have like a masked wrestler go on The Masked Singer.
Oh, that would be great.
They're just like, but he's still wearing a mask. Rey Mysterio is here and he's still wearing a mask.
You're like, oh, who was the armadillo? And then they take it off. Oh, it was one of the conquistadors. Well, who's the conquistador? It's Edge.
I imagine that like Rey Mysterio would be up for this. I think they could convince Rey Mysterio to do this.
I want to know some suggestions in the comments. What creatures or because it's not just animals, right? Like they could be like,
yeah, they could be whatever.
Like I don't know, a sponge or something if they want to do. What would you think certain people should dress up with as if they were on The Masked Singer? Like, what would you drop a comment if you would be like, hey, fucking Orange Cassidy, are you going to make him an orange, or are you going to make him something else? Are you going to take a guy like, who would be like Jake the Snake Roberts or something? Is he going to be a snake, or is he going to be completely unrelated? What would Montez Ford be? What would Bailey be? Whatever. I want to know some suggestions. Drop in the comments.
But genuinely, I think those last two would be fun people to put on a show like this. I don't know. Like I could see like Chris Jericho is like some pink dinosaur bride thing. So I don't know if they get to choose the costumes or anything like that. But it's harmless fun for what it is. But I did watch the clip, and Alexa Bliss could be any person just trying to be Leanne Rimes. So you really wouldn't even hazard a guess. But it was harmless.
Is there any confirmation that they're actually 100% singing?
Yeah, well, I don't know if they, budget for anyone, but I know for a fact like Jericho was very much Jericho. This very much was just Alexa Bliss singing.
Yeah, I'd say like if they're not singing, would they not consider trying to find someone that could sing to do it instead? Like, because like, well, why would you like not do it and not get someone good to replace you instead? Just I think it's real. I think it's genuine. But yeah, and as far as the basal cell carcinoma goes, glad that she's got the all clear.
Let's see what this says. I was trying to look to see if there's any information about this. The celebrity speaking voices aren't altered during rehearsal. They whisper to the producers so no one else can hear them, and they always sing in their real voices. At least according to this thing. So everyone had to sing, and they only had to one take each. Yeah. Okay. Well,
they might not be singing when they're on stage, but it might be a case that it's a recording of their voice, but it's still.
Yeah, I would assume that they recorded ahead of time, and then I wouldn't say that they would lip sync because you can't see their lips, but they're probably performing on the stage to a track that they already recorded. Yeah, because whatever the costumes are, they can't really have like the audio feed working through that. But I don't know. I mean, maybe if you're one of the crossover people that you do dig this show, fill us in. What were you like? Oh man, I didn't guess Alexa, or are you sort of like, I thought it was her from the very beginning? I don't know. At least good news about the skincare stuff that they got that sorted out. It's good to see that she appeared on another show, boosts up her popularity a little bit. Maybe it gets a little bit of buzz. WWE is not going to probably mention it whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe they mention it on SmackDown tomorrow night. If they do, it'll be like, oh, remember Alexa Bliss was just on there.
They absolutely should. I mean, for God's sake, the show is on Fox.
Right.
I mean, so it's egregious if they don't.
But if they don't, it'll be because they genuinely just don't care enough. But
yeah,
with the blurbs that they just put out there, where it's the progressive slam of the week and whatever, they should at least go, by the way, if you've been watching The Masked Singer, you should know that Alexa Bliss was this most recent reveal, and hey, look at that, WWE expands beyond WWE, go watch some other shows on Fox. And then you'll hear that it's like some football plug or something, I don't know. But that's another one of those hot tags down. Let's get into some TV talk about some of these different things. Let's go back and rewind a little bit. We're going to finish things out with the Hall of Fame, I'm pretty sure. And let's start off with the Monday Night Raw recap. We got with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens kicking off the show, and some more stuff with the Bloodline still not getting along with the Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso elements of Roman Reigns, not necessarily trusting them 100% anymore and all. Where do you guys think that this is all going to go? I mean, we know at this point that the tag team match has been set. We're getting Sami Zayn and the Usos, or Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens against the Usos at Mania, but they are still harping on this whole Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Roman Reigns tension.
I think there's a lot to saying, hey, what was I going to say? Hey,
I was like, I don't know. There's a lot about, hey, I don't know.
The Usos are going to leave Roman Reigns, essentially.
Yeah, I would say that it's part of because this is part of the story this is the combination of the Owens and Zayn thing at the very least, and their battles with the Bloodline, or at least the big moment where they will win tag team titles at WrestleMania. But the overarching story is what the Usos leaving and the disintegration of the Bloodline, and when that happens. So I appreciate the fact that this is going to be the combination of some elements of that story with the likelihood of tag titles changing hands and Cody beating Roman at Mania and becoming the world champion. But then you still have a bloodline that exists, and eventually they've got to fall apart. And they are harping on the fact, or like knocking you over the head with the fact that, yeah, the Usos are going to turn on Reigns at some point. And they even set in motion this week the thought of, yeah, eventually Solo's going to turn on Roman Reigns as well, and Reigns is going to be left on his own. So I think, well, eventually that's all got to happen because eventually Reigns has got to be a babyface at some point. So this all has to happen before that can occur. He has to be left with absolutely no one around and then have to work his way back up. And starting that, like the last person that should be by his side doing things is Heyman. And he should eventually turn on Heyman, and Heyman is a perennial heel, so that'll turn him babyface.
Unless the swerve is, and I think I could see this also in another angle on another company, but unless it's, you gotta get rid of Heyman is the cancer. You know?
The wise man that shouldn't have been a part of the bloodline because he's not actually a great influence is the reason why the bloodline doesn't get along.
He's actually just a shitbag who wants to ride your coattails the way he rode Brock's.
Yeah, see, I just don't think you can't go like that because you need to have the split between Jay and Roman. Because realistically, you need to have Jay beat Roman at some point. Because the whole bloodline story started obviously with Heyman and the wise man with Roman, but it started with Reigns feuding with Jay. And Jay becoming his subordinate based on the fact that Roman threatened to destroy Jimmy. And that's been the whole narrative throughout this entire thing, is that Jay is part of the bloodline, but he's part of the bloodline because he is always going to protect Jimmy. So it needs to be a case of well, I don't know how it will end up turning out exactly, but it should be a case of Roman is punishing the Usos later on, like some months after WrestleMania, and then he pushes Jay or beats him down or just slaps him across the face or something, and then Jimmy gets pissed and attacks Roman. They both attack Roman. You have a big tag team match, maybe at SummerSlam, between those two against Solo and Roman, and you go from there. I think that you need to have the entire bloodline disintegrate, and then you then start the story of Roman's redemption, and eventually, I'm talking like years down the line, of them coming back together as a genuine family with no kind of, no animosity or no subservience, and then being a babyface faction instead. That's what you should be doing if you're telling this big, overarching, long-term story. And then if that happens, then I would basically be one of the people that already exist and be like, yeah, this is probably one of the best on-running stories that WWE's ever told.
I think the simple way of doing it, if they want to kind of just skip to the end already, is the Usos drop the belts at Mania. Either it's the main event of night. We still don't know what the main event of night one is. There are now conflicting reports again about that it's going to be the tag team match, or it could be Charlotte and Rhea.
I think it's going to come down to day of, and if I had to guess, I think it comes down to Charlotte and Rhea will make a bigger stink. If they are not, then the Usos, Kevin, and Sami will.
You mean like personally, like those two in the company, or do you think that'll make a bigger stink on?
I think that they are, people who over politicize things, but I just imagine, I can't imagine Sami Zayn or the Usos going, we need to headline this show. I think they're just happy to do it. Whereas I can see Charlotte being like, no, Rhea won the damn Royal Rumble. We're headlining this show.
Depending on which way they go, I think the simple, easy way to do this, maybe it's not the best way of doing it, but I think that this is, look, if you want to just, Roman wants to take time off and you want to skip to the end, essentially, that's what I'm pitching here. That it's night one of Mania, or it's the opening of Mania night 2, depending on what it is. Usos drop the titles. Cody beats Roman. And the Usos had tried to help out at one point during, because you got to assume at some point the Usos and Solo Sikoa are going to get involved in that Roman Reigns match. The referee's going to get knocked down. It's going to happen. We know how this plays out. And Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, maybe some other people, I don't know. I still think that it would be great if The Rock could do it, but he's probably not going to. They come out, they help out, Cody wins the title. On Raw, I think if you want to skip to it, you've got Roman is upset with the Usos because, hey, you guys not only lost your titles, but you didn't save me from dropping my belt. And that's when they just go, you know what? Sammy was right. And Jay and Jimmy leave Roman and, lay him out or whatever. And maybe it ends with Solo giving the Samoan spike to Roman. And then we don't see Roman for however many months. I think that could be just as simple as they go with that. But
why would you rush it?
Well, I'm saying it's not what I would necessarily do, but I'm saying if they feel the need to rush it, like if Roman's like, look, after Mania, I want to take time off, then I think that makes more sense to do that than to be like, all right, how do we wait 9 months to come back to this and have Jimmy and Jay and Solo without Roman appearing for months and months, I think that cools it down too much.
I think
say that, but like this story, well, the Bloodline story has been going on for 3 years already.
Yeah, but Roman hasn't been gone for months at a time.
No, but you just continue the story with the three of them, and then Roman comes back, and that's actually a good way to do it. Really, is you have Roman disappear for a few months. These three continue to be the Bloodline for a while, feud with Cody and Sammy and Roman,
Sammy
or
and
just
Kevin.
continue to try and do things. Yeah, they've got a 3-on-3 there, and then they fail to get back their titles, or you have like Solo fail to become world champion. You could have him fight Cody for it and fail to do it. Then Roman comes back and he's even more pissed because they're all a bunch of failures in his eyes. And then you start the process of the real fractures forming that like already like bubbling under the surface, but there's a lot more that can be done. So I think that definitely Roman leaving for a little while and just having those three to fend for themselves for a little while could actually be a really good fuel for the future breakup of them. So yeah, I think either way, you've got to prolong this story for a while. They should be going until next year's WrestleMania at the very least.
I kind of agree. I see it.
Well, I mean, who knows what they got in store, but they're at least teasing that this is still going to continue with the Jey Uso and Roman thing. So
because at the end of the day, that's like they have it so interwoven that it has to end. Even if it's, hey, let's just turn Roman babyface by having the other three remain heels, and Roman's character is so strong at this point that like people will just cheer him over them. Like I think Jay has to turn on Roman. The only way that, and you mentioned just trying to rush things and potentially The Rock, the only way I would even want to see The Rock anymore involved in this is if Roman's closing out night, the Raw after Mania, and he's mad at Bloodline, and the Bloodline abandon him, and he's, where are you going? You can't leave me. I am this family. I'm the head of the table. Out comes Rock bottom. And then you don't, and then, okay, we'll see you next year kind of thing. Like, that's the only way that I would even want to see that. But I'd much rather what Callum is suggesting, where it's a slow burn that actually advances people that are going to be on TV week to week.
I'm just assuming that if Roman takes time off, that they're not going to slow burn anything like that, because you can't have Jimmy and Jay and Solo still fighting Kevin and Sammy and Cody for the next 12 months. Like you got to move on.
Next 2. But it depends on how long Roman really wants to be away.
Right. If it's a significant amount of time off, then that's going to be something they have to book around,
Hey, hold on. I know, look, we're going to get into our previews next week, but I have to ask this question right here, right now. Callum, you're not going to seriously make an argument next week that Roman Reigns might actually win, are you?
Potentially. I'm not going. I definitely not what I would do. I'm not going to argue for it. I'm going to argue it's definitely a possibility.
Okay, just so we're
I'm not one of
these. For it.
Yeah, I'm not one of these weird people on Twitter that seem to think that it's the absolute right decision that Roman Reigns must retain against Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I think that's crazy.
I don't know. Cody. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Cody's just not over enough. And it's just like, no, that's
okay. I just want to make sure that it's over. All on the level.
It's done. But I am still of the belief that they may not think it's done, because I just think Again, we'll get into
There's
it.
a history of WWE playing around with shit like that
I
sometimes.
think they're just seeing the number 1,000 in their head, and that's all they're seeing, and that's the one thing that I think could be the barrier to this.
Well, we got some other stuff on Raw that had happened when it came to just like the standard type of, hey, Omos needs to beat somebody to, look strong on the road to WrestleMania. Austin Theory beats Montez Ford for the sake of it. That kind of deal. We got the impulsive TV segment thing. I don't think anything happened in there that really stood out to me. I mean, it was fine, but like, the feud's the same as what it was before. They didn't do any real twists. So the only things that happened on Raw that I felt like are really worth talking about, because essentially, hey, look, Asuka finally hit Bianca. Wow. Ooh, okay, that's talk about a fucking Mania feud, guys, but I think the only thing that's really worth talking about is the idea that Dominic now suggested something that I had written up in an article prior to this, where I was like, I think the only way that Ray can justify fighting his son is if Dominic does something to Angie and or Aaliyah. And now we're going to get the segment on SmackDown where, quote unquote, the entire Mysterio family is going to be out there. So I think that's the way to do it. I think Dominic needs to either like sick Rhea Ripley on his mom and his sister or something, or, whatever, to where Ray is like, kind of like, hey, I disown you as my son. Now I'm not looking at you that way because I got to protect my wife and daughter. And I think that makes sense.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Luchador Cinema.
You blew my mind with the idea. I did not know that was going to be the tie-in.
I cannot wait. Ugh.
If they really, we had heard months ago.
I'm just joking when I say this, but it certainly seems like it could be heading in that direction.
Rey Mysterio's on the packaging for Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So if they have this idea in mind that they wanted to do a tie-in match like the Mountain Dew fuck you whatever flavor thing that they had, blast you in the face, that's nuts to me. If it ends up being Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio in a Cinnamon Toast Crunch fucking whatever, I don't know.
But it's a blood feud. It's like it's the father against the son, and it's supposed to be like really like emotive, and it's supposed to be like how Dominic blames Ray for not being there growing up, and Ray refuses to fight his son. And if they surround it in a bunch of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, then that's gonna lessen the emotive power of this match a little bit, isn't it?
The joke I made on Twitter when I first saw just the original Luchador cereal box, and not even the one with Ray on the cover, was, well, Ray's gonna apologize for missing so many family breakfasts.
It's the most important meal of the day.
I'm gonna love like Corey Graves and Michael Cole on commentary trying to balance out the weight of the emotional draw and the power of just like how spoiled Dominic is and how much this is breaking Ray's heart. Just like, oh, but his heart may be broken, but his stomach is nice and full because of all the Cinnamon Toast Crunch
No, Callum, you don't understand. This makes perfect sense. Dominic has spent the last several months crying over spilt milk. We're gonna have cereal. If they do this, they have shit on one of the best stories they have. I hope they don't do this, but it's
part of me really hopes that they do. Because it's just like, god damn, man, that like there's no tie-in that makes sense. Like that would make even less sense than the Mountain Dew thing, because at least with that being pitch black and you make it the pitch black match and whatever you do that, like I can't imagine that they're like, okay, well the tie-in we're gonna do is the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Like, are you gonna put cinnamon all over the ring? Like, what are you gonna do? You know? Is it gonna be oh my god, it's gonna be the cinnamon challenge?
God.
Where they gotta take a spoonful of cinnamon and do that?
No, the winner is to it's like the mimosa match. The winner is to throw their person fruit into a big bowl of cereal.
Look, I'm a huge fan of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. If you want to sponsor us,
if they do the mimosa deal, I think I'd actually be okay with that. If it just becomes okay, fucking Dominic's going in the milk. He's going in the milk. To hell with it.
They haven't said anything about it yet. But, I mean, it's been however many weeks since we had heard different reports about that there was a planned tie-in match for WrestleMania. And if it's this, which it seems like it could be because nothing else has been at least even remotely hinted at, and Rey Mysterio is on the cover of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I don't know, man. That seems nuts. But it's something to keep an eye on. So that was essentially Monday Night Raw. I mean, there's not really, we don't really talk about Ricochet beating Chad Gable, whatever. They announced that.
Why are we talking about the WrestleMania showcase match? Look, I know we're going to talk about it next week, but like, this is lazy, and I don't even know why they're called showcase matches. Just say they're like, you don't have to add a damn tagline to everything.
Well, they're adding a tagline because it's absolutely meaningless. So this is their attempt to try to make it seem like it actually has some purpose to it. Because if they would have just said, here are 2 fatal 4 ways to get people on the card, that's, they can't market it like that. But if they call it something, then people are going to go, oh, this is a showcase match.
Who's going to do that?
The people that watch The Masked Singer. No, I would do the same thing to a certain extent. I mean, obviously, this is not at all what I would have booked for WrestleMania because I would have actually put in the effort. I would have had a spreadsheet going a year in the past to try to figure out who I want to, but let's put it this way. The week after Mania, our current game plan is to do fantasy booking WrestleMania 40, and then you're going to see how much effort we actually can put into this thing. But on top of that, if somebody were to say to me, look, we don't have anything we really want to do. We just want to slap a 4-way tag team match on here, and we need you to try to make it seem like it's meaningful, but we don't want to call it a number 1 contenders match, and we don't want to do this, and we don't want to do that. What do you want to do? What's your pitch? At this point, what can you do other than to give it some kind of a generic name like that?
I think it's dumb.
Oh, I agree with you. But like, if you just say it's a fatal 4-way tag team match versus if you say it's a fatal 4-way WrestleMania showcase match, you instantly give it at least a little bit of a boost. It's not that much, but it's something. So it's dumb. It's lazy. 0 effort. But I mean, well, let's put it this way. It's not 0 effort. It's about like 0.1% effort. Because they could have just not called it that. But they announced the 4 teams that are on the men's side. They were like, hey, it's these 4. The women teams have to qualify. I don't know why. And we still only have 1 team that's qualified, despite the fact that we did the episode of Monday Night Raw. And they could have done something with Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. They could have done something with Carmella. I don't know where she is right now. That's another kind of, hey, what's going on sort of deal. But Monday Night Raw didn't quite feel to me like that was one of those episodes where it's like, hey, man, it's on the road to WrestleMania. Next week is Mania, everybody. It kind of felt like just an episode to me. NXT, I will say, they were kind of rushing along with some of this stuff here. They were like, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. They announced like fucking 4 different matches or whatever for Stand and Deliver. So we have not only this week's, but we have next week's to talk about as far as the spoilers go. Before we get into the spoilers, we will warn everybody in case you don't want to know for any means, then you can just skip ahead. But for this week, we got the host of Stand and Deliver, Pretty Deadly, coming out and doing something that has been stuck in my head ever since then, which is that they are hosting Stand
and Deliver.
Which I was like, God damn it, that's going to be stuck in my head. And it has been. They set up a tag team match for later on. They lost to Braun Breaker and Carmelo Hayes, which they specifically even said the whole "can they coexist" thing. I like that they're poking fun at themselves.
Like Carmelo Hayes is just straight up like, I'm not doing this shit. No.
I like that. Tiffany Stratton beat Indy Hartwell to qualify for the ladder match. Lyra Valkyria beat Ivy Nile instead of Wendy Chu. She got replaced for some reason.
Never mind the commercial that you saw. It wasn't Wendy Chu.
Yeah, I mean, they had the graphic and everything, but whatever. The tag team situation that's going on right now, the Creed brothers, for some reason, like the story with Gallus that they want to tell over and over is people go up to Gallus and go, we want to fight. And then they go, let's play pool. And we'll give you a match with no questions whatsoever, but you need to play pool with us first.
They just want to have a good time in a bar. Like,
this is like the third time that this has happened. It's funny that's the story of Gallus is we want friends and we'll give you a tag team title match if you are friends with us and you play pool.
I think it's funny that all 6 of them, the Creed brothers, Tony D and Stax and Gallus, were just like, wow, that was a really good time.
Yeah,
we had
fun throwing some darts and whatever. We're gonna have a triple threat, and cool. There's a spoiler when it comes to next week that another team getting involved in that. I'll talk about that in a minute, but that tag team match, we'll talk about our predictions and everything. Cool. I like that idea. That's fine. Wesley granted a couple more spots for the North American Championship match. First off to Dragon Lee. He was just like, cool, I like it, you're in. Then JD McDonough and Ilya came out, and it's never going to get old for me. I fucking love doing that. Dragunov and McDonough fought. They are both in it as well. They fought to a no contest and everything. So the final participant in that is going to be settled on a battle royal for next week. We already know who wins, so we'll tell you that in a few minutes. Andy Hartwell threw a tantrum backstage. I really like the thing with Javier Bernal coming out to Johnny Gargano's theme and complaining that he should have a spot on the card and saying things like, between the two of us, we're Grand Slam champions in NXT.
I told you the kid had something.
He's funny, man. Like, he's good. I like him. And that set up Gargano setting up a thing for this next episode that they had recorded where they're going to have an unsanctioned match, Waller and Gargano. So unsanctioned, my wife goes, what's an unsanctioned match? And I'm like, it's another one of their 15 terms for a no DQ. It's just that makes it seem like it's even more no disqualification. Whatever, right. It is what it is.
Like, you can't even, in a weird way, Grayson shouldn't want an unsanctioned match. Doesn't this mean that Shawn Michaels gets what he wants and he's not technically on the card?
That's true.
I don't know.
At least he knows he can whip the crap out of Gargano, whether he's in a regular match, an unsanctioned match, or in front of his house.
Yeah.
This whole Sebastian thing continued, not in a real meaningful way. Hank Walker had a whole video package thing. That didn't really do anything. Eddie Thorpe is going to be on NXT next week. He had only been on the Level Up show. I still haven't seen him yet, so I'll check that out next week.
Why is Carl Fredericks a DJ? Why are they doing that?
I don't know anything about Carl Fredericks. So is he? Does he have some kind of background for it?
No, he's a great wrestler. I don't know. It seemed like they were like, okay, and here's what we got. He's Native American and he's a DJ. Oh, okay, sure. Like.
Shrug. I don't know how what his background is and all. I still don't know anything about Eddie Thorpe. I don't even really know what he looks like. That promo was the only thing I had seen. But we also got the great debate between Chase University and Schism, which set up a match that is going to happen at Stand and Deliver. Another match, because Stand and Deliver's had like 7 matches or something at this point. It's maybe the biggest card that we've ever gotten from NXT in the history of like takeovers and such. If Schism beats Chase University, which essentially probably is going to happen the way that things are looking, then they get control over Chase U for an indeterminate amount of time. Ava Rain's going to wrestle.
That is the headline here. That was the headline of my article, was Ava Rain, Simone Johnson is debuting in the ring. And that is exciting, even if she only does 5 minutes worth of stuff with Thea Hale.
Doubt that she'll even do that.
Yeah, I don't think 5 minutes worth, but she's going to do something, which is more than what she's done so far. Like, we're finally going to get to see what she can do in the ring as far as at least 3 moves or something. So I'm into the idea of doing that. And then, of course, we will break down more NXT Stand and Deliver stuff next week when our onslaught of pay-per-view point stuff. But warning, we are going to get into spoilers now for this next episode of NXT. So if you don't want to know what happens before Tuesday, skip forward for a few minutes. We're going to make this pretty quick. Warning, warning, warning. Spoilers coming up. All right. Axiom won the Battle Royal. He is in the final spot for the North American title. A little bit disappointed in that, to be honest. kind of wanted it to be somebody like a Dabakato, or for somebody else to pop up and just be like, hey, you know, we got this other person or whatever. It makes sense, I guess, that Axiom's in there because he's been somebody who's been wanting to fight for this belt for so long, but meh.
Yeah. I hope that, if I had to guess, I hope Dragon Lee wins. I'm also super big on Dragunov. I just think like this guy, I like watching him wrestle. So give him the belt, either him or Dragon Lee.
What's your current? Yeah, I was gonna say for Callum. Yeah,
I'm of the mindset of if I'm going to watch a wrestling show, I want good wrestlers to wrestle on that wrestling show, and so I'm happy that Axiom was the choice.
But it's come Tuesday, Callum.
I don't want any
Von Wagner.
I don't want any more of these people who suck in the ring to be put in these big matches.
Well, that'll become Saturday, so it's not quite the same. I currently, right now, if we're just tossing out very quick predictions for this, I currently think that Wesley's retaining, but could be Dragon Lee, could be whatever. Tyler Bate beats Von Wagner. Elektra Lopez beats Valentina Feroz. Eddie Thorpe beats Miles Bourne. Indy Hartwell gets the last chance qualifier to get into the women's championship ladder match. Really? And that they still don't know.
What did I say? What did I just say about not wanting bad wrestlers to be on these wrestling shows?
Like Sol Rucka's in that match. I thought for sure she was going to get it.
Yeah, I thought that she was going to as well. And it would be another thing that Indy would be like, I even lost the last chance thing or something, because they really want to just keep teasing the heel turn for her. But according to the reports, they still did not clarify what's happening with Roxanne, but she may be able to compete. So they might just at the last minute on the pay-per-view be like, you know what? And she is not going to relinquish the title. She's going to fight for it here. I still think she's going to lose, though. One way or another. Yeah, it's a ladder match. She can lose without getting pinned, obviously, because there is no pinfalls. So I think that we are looking at Tiffany Stratton winning. And I think that Indy Hartwell being a part of this is just sort of to get her on the card. I don't know. Stax and Lorenzo beat Jensen and Briggs. And according to the story, Jensen and Briggs were trying to get into that title match to make it a 4-way. And if Stax and Lorenzo would have lost, then they would have, but they end up beating them. So that's a little bit of a swerve, because normally when they end up being like, if I beat you, then whatever, then usually that's what happens. So I'm not opposed to it, to be honest, because even though I like Jensen and Briggs, we've got a 5-way for the North American title. We've got a triple threat for the tag titles. We've got this women's ladder match. We got a lot of multi-person matches. And I think Jensen and Briggs, yeah, they could have easily been on there and it wouldn't have really changed anything, but I don't think they need to be, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm way more interested in what they do outside of the ring at this point.
And you got to assume that they probably will pop up on the women's tag title match too. So
yeah,
Drew Gulak beats Hank Walker and Grace Waller signs the contract and Gargano attacks him. There you go. That's NXT. Saved you 2 hours from next week. But
didn't save me, but I appreciate knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody skipped ahead and everything. If that's the case, then let's go ahead and let's talk about the Dynamite side of things. And then we're going to switch around for the Wrestling with the Past side of this whole podcast. Dynamite featured Darby Allin, Sting, and Orange Cassidy against Butcher, the Blade, and Kip Sabian, as Rob was talking about earlier, as the opener for that. A lot of the Dynamite episode I didn't really pay too much attention to. I was just kind of working on some other things, but the little bits that I had seen, all the matches were just like, they were fine. It wasn't anything super special, except for one of them. But we'll get around to that to the end, though, because that was the main event.
I would technically say that the show opened up with Young Bucks being taken away in an ambulance.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, they did start with that. So that was one of the through lines throughout the night, was that the Young Bucks had gotten attacked, and that Hangman Adam Page was there as like support for that. And during that that segment, there was the production truck in the background, and CM Punk is on that as far as like the graphics for certain people. And they actually put up cardboard or like wooden planks or something to cover up his portion of it. What do you guys think is going on with that? You think that was them just being
coming
like...
back. He's coming back.
You think that's the teaser, or do you think that was them being like, we don't want him in the shot? Like, you know...
I don't know what the reason is for it, but I think he's... I would like to think that... I'd like to think it was intentional. I think he's coming back. It's getting stronger with every passing week. But I feel like he's going to be back in Dynamite.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were going to come more pissed than just
what else? What else is there to say? Like,
no, just the way that you said it. I thought you were going to go, whatever. It's just
they covered up his face because Twitter is full of a bunch of insane people who caught it almost instantly.
I didn't at all.
That they covered up his face, and like, I think he's coming back. I don't know if he's the person who attacked them. I think if he is, that's great. That, because obviously they made it look like it was BCC, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was CM Punk. Maybe it was. Maybe, honestly, I think it's not BCC. I think it's Takeshita, but we'll see.
Why Takeshita?
Don Callis being a little bitch.
Yeah, because he's the story that's been told is that Takeshita is Don Callis' new kind of prize project. So yeah, if we'll obviously talk about what happens in the main event, but if the whole angle is being built around the fact that Callis is trying to separate Kenny from the rest of the elite, then Takeshita could be a good tool to try and do that.
We had the Guns beat Top Flight. FTR came out after that, and despite trying to do different things like, hey, we won't challenge for the belts anymore, or we'll split up as a tag team and all, they eventually settled on the idea if they don't beat the Guns for the tag titles, then they quit AEW.
Yeah, I wonder who's winning the tag titles.
Yeah.
Dark Order.
I wonder who.
No, I still am expecting FTR ends up winning those belts, obviously. But hey, I mean, you never know. Could be their exit. I don't think so. I think could be.
They've telegraphed it too much, I think, for it to be that. And also, it's kind of like lessened my excitement for that match because the fact that they have been teasing it for so long. It's kind of at a point of I'd rather if they were going that they would just go instead of like having to drag it out to this kind of match and stipulation. But we'll see.
After that, we got the Jade Cargill stuff, essentially just being like, hey, remember the Taya stuff is happening. Not too much going on there. Hook beats Stokely Hathaway, who tried to retire before the match. I thought that was funny.
He was hilarious in this match.
This was fantastic. So much fun. Fantastic.
His doctor's note is a receipt for Wingstop. It just says he's sick on it.
Yeah, and Hook gets thrown him around and put him in the red rum and get the victory. It was, I think that they're building up. Next will be a match between him and Ethan Page for the FTW title.
Yeah, because Matt Hardy is geniusly like, oh, poor Stokely. Ethan, you gotta get it, vengeance. You gotta avenge Stokely. He's sending them all to be killed by Hook, and I think that's hysterical. And the Wingstop receipt, and it being announced as Wingstop receipt by Justin Roberts was the funniest thing on the show.
That'd be a great time for Wingstop if that was like a sponsored thing for them.
That would have been great.
And then Hook could have beaten him with a cross-faced chicken wing.
Yeah, he should have.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's a better way to do it instead of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, whatever the fuck they're going to do with Dominic. Yeah, there was that. There was the setup for Adam Cole and Daniel Garcia. That's going to be Adam Cole's return match, which, hey, look, that's going to be great. Yeah, for that.
There were two big things, but obviously the announcement of the match is going to take place next week, which should be very good, and it's a good opponent to have Adam Cole return against, which means we're absolutely getting Adam Cole versus Chris Jericho at Double or Nothing. And then, but also just something that a lot of people have pointed out on Twitter was Daniel Garcia accidentally saying the phrase professional wrestler
Yeah, I loved that little touch where he's just like, I am the best professional. And then he's like, sports entertainer. It was a good little moment.
Yeah, you know what I loved about it? I loved the fact the crowd reacted to it. Because it means that people remember it, and it means that that story still can happen. It probably, I think we're all in agreement that they went about it the wrong way.
Yeah.
With the whole, but it means that they can bring it back and it will still work. So that's maybe not as well as it could have, but it still will have an effect. So that's good to see.
I think it's amazing that Chris Jericho got a year of programming out of the word sports entertainer. A year of programming. Think about that. That's how good Jericho is.
To be fair, Vince McMahon got a 40-year career out of it.
I mean, isn't that amazing? Like, just genuine emotion evoked from that one term. Because how dare you call it sports entertainment?
I mean, how much mileage did he get out of it?
That's true.
So Moxley beats Stu Grayson. Tony Storm beats Sky Blue. I don't think there's anything that I really feel like talking about with either of those two. You guys?
No. I mean, the more interesting was the attack on Stu Grayson backstage afterwards by BCC. So they're continuing to feud with both the Dark Order and the Elite. Jamie Hayter wasn't on the show because she has visa issue. Well, she's getting her visa renewed, so that's why she's back in the UK temporarily. And so they had the substitute free women do the handle the stuff with the Outcast this week instead.
Yeah, it was fine. Progress the story. They're clear. It's Riho, Willow, Sky Blue, and Britt and Jamie as like the 5 there.
Well, let's talk about that main event.
That was far and away, they fucking delivered. I don't care if you didn't know who the fuck he was, because all you had to do was watch that match and go, I don't need to know who he is, but I want to see more of him.
I will maintain that the build for that, for people that don't know him, is still in that range of like, they're banking on the idea that you need to be a real hardcore pro wrestling fan. And that ultimately is the AEW audience, is the more hardcore pro wrestling fans that would be following all these other companies and stuff. But I have not seen a single match of his that I can think of. At the very least, I don't remember any of his. But I'll be damned, I've got it on my list of match of the year.
Yeah, again, I know this started off this whole massive discourse about, oh, where's the story? AEW doesn't tell stories, all this stuff. And it's like, not only did this match not need the story, because fundamentally Kenny Omega's wrestling, and Kenny Omega's a big star for an AEW audience and has been there since the beginning, and everyone knows how good he is. So pretty much if he's going to have a singles match, it's for that audience must-watch television anyway, especially because in fact he hadn't had a singles match on TV since returning to the company. So this was, well, I say return to the company, returning from injury. So that's a big deal. And then he's facing, even though you may not know who the guy is, you see him come out and he's the AAA World Champion. And so, Kenny was a previous AAA World Champion. I think actually the previous AAA World Champion.
Correct.
So that means that, okay, he must be at least credible, at the very least, if not great, as you find out when you actually watch the match. But then they fit it within the story of the Elite that's going on right now. So it's like this, even though this was just a match within that, it then led to the storyline progression. So I think that the overall discourse that has come just basically by the bunch of people on Twitter saying, oh, how can I get excited for a match which I don't know who the guy is? And then it being responded to ad nauseum with people saying, oh, Cody's facing Ludwig Kaiser in just a match on SmackDown next week. What's the story behind this one? And it's just like, yeah, I think inadvertently what they proposed a dream match and ended up being like one of the best matches in Dynamite history, arguably, has started off a discourse of everyone now constantly saying when someone just books a match on a wrestling show between two wrestlers who aren't necessarily in a big long-standing feud, will just constantly be saying, what's the story, what's the story, what's the story?
I can see the criticism with some things, but it's like I say every time that we have any discussions when it comes to just how everybody in the world needs to shut the fuck up a little bit, is there are gray areas to everything. Everybody acts like it has to be two extremes. It's got to be black and white. And it's like, yeah, look, Tony Storm versus Sky Blue has part of a story to it, but I don't care. And AEW in general, I think, does need to tell more stories, because they do tend to book a lot of matches that are just sort of, it's a guy against a guy. And, you know, I mean, they have like the AEW Dark is essentially person versus person. There is no story for a lot of some of those things. And then there's some stories that are only on Dark that you wouldn't follow if you weren't watching Dark and stuff. But a lot of the time they do bank on the idea of just, hey, aren't you excited that this person from another company is fighting this? And for that market, it works for some people. For other people like me, sometimes it's a more of a miss than a hit. Okay, but when you say that something's a dream match, that's where I think some of the criticism comes in. But then you got to also look at it and go, well, look, is it a dream match within AEW, or is it a dream match within the quote unquote wrestling community? And I think that's a little bit of where the discourse comes in, where like, yeah, that's not a dream match in AEW in the same way that Undertaker versus Andre the Giant would have been in WWE, for instance. But if you're going to just ask people dream match, El Hijo del Vikingo, who would you have as a dream match opponent? People are going to end up saying things from all different sorts of companies. And Kenny Omega was a part of AAA. He's a mega champion and all. So if they want to say that this is a dream match for AAA, that makes sense and all. It's gray areas. I mean,
fundamentally, it doesn't matter. The fucking match absolutely delivered. Kenny Omega has had 2 match of the year candidates, and it's not even April. And Vikingo should be signed. He should want to leave Mexico. He should want to be worldwide, because this dude is the best flyer I've seen since a young Rey Mysterio.
That one, whatever spin, I don't know, whatever the degree was that he did for the table spot, like that was great.
630. Yeah. I mean, there's a few things. First of all, Vikingo should do whatever Vikingo wants to do. He's like probably very well lauded in AAA and probably treated very well because he is like one of their biggest stars. And being part of AAA means that he can just go to pretty much any promotion he wants to and wrestle on any show if they'll have him. And why would you not want him? He's absolutely fantastic. I think that if there is any promotion in North America that needs to be telling more stories, it's WWE, because they put on random matches every single week. What's the story behind this Chad Gable versus whatever
Ricochet
person it was, Ricochet match?
Yeah,
beyond
like
the fact that they're going to have a match at WrestleMania which has no story.
Yeah,
and it's like I do get what you're saying. I think if it's building towards a pay-per-view, there needs to be a story, because that's the match. Those are the matches that you're paying for. If it's a free match on TV, I'm totally fine with Wrestler X versus Wrestler X, and they're just having a match, because fundamentally that should be what I don't say most of wrestling is, but what a lot of wrestling should be, because they're people that are just employed by a promotion, and you're just trying to book matches, and you see who wins out of the 2 people that you've booked against each other.
But I also agree with the people that go, if it is just person versus person, no matter what the scenario is, and there's no build, then I have no reason to necessarily be excited. Because if they, like you said, like Cody's up against Ludwig Kaiser, I like both of them, so I like that. But if I didn't, then I think it's perfectly fine to just skip it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I get that point. Yeah. In the case of that, you need to like you if you're going to just book a match against a match out of the blue, you need to, if you're going to be excited for it, you need to like one, if not both, of the wrestlers.
Yeah,
for that to happen. I totally agree with that. And if it's one or both wrestlers are people that you don't like, then yeah, of course you're not going to be excited for it. Or if you don't know who they are, you're not going to be excited. You're not going to be as excited for it if it's 2 people that you are familiar with. I just think that in these circumstances where it's just like it's a free TV show, like you might as well just watch it to see if it's any good. You're not losing out on anything realistically. If you're going to watch the show anyway, then you might as well just watch it and see if it's any good. And if it's not very good, then you just say, okay, I probably won't be as invested in watching the guy that I wasn't aware of beforehand going forward. But I think that the overall, as I say, the discourse and the stupid takes that this inspired, based on the fact that clearly certain people who are supposedly like wrestling experts and people that probably should know this stuff more than anybody else are coming up and saying, and then coming up with this increasingly imaginary casual fan, which doesn't, casual wrestling fans don't exist, because nobody who isn't watching wrestling at least semi-regularly is like, it's hard to explain, but like wrestling is so niche and wrestling is so kind of built for hardcore fans that really casuals don't exist, because you just can't get into any story about it. The casual fans are the people who actually would probably like this match, because it's just two guys that have a great match with each other and they just get super excited about it. They're not the ones that are actually going to be interested in a quote unquote story building up to this one.
The casual fans are going to like Brock versus Omos.
Yeah, exactly. The casual fans will like Brock versus Omos because there's two big guys beating the crap out of each other.
Yeah, the same way that somebody like, I don't watch UFC or boxing or whatever. So when I've watched a couple UFC events specifically for like the CM Punk thing, and people were like, it's I don't know, Manny Rodriguez versus Jake Smith, or I'm making people up, like, and it's just like, okay, this guy weighs 5'10". He's weighs 5'10". He's 5'10" and he weighs 185 pounds or something. And then you go, I don't fucking care. But I mean, that's a different sort of thing. So it's different ways to approach the product and all. But again, it's all gray areas.
Yeah. I kind of get the mindset of like the casual fans are the ones that are going to see clips of this match spiraling around Twitter and then check it out. And then either check out the full match or go search out a little bit more and just say, oh, this looks cool. They're the ones that I just think are interested in the highlights and the just what matches look cool or what spots look cool. And that's kind of it. And they don't really pursue it any further. They are the ones that I think are furthest away from the actual in-depth storylines. That's the stuff that we want, because we're watching it every week and we're watching pretty much every second of the shows that we like. So we want to see the stories and the progression and all of that development. The casual fans just want to see a highlight reel. And that's totally fine. As I say, different strokes for different folks. And you're going to have a, like I say, if you're going for like that UFC or boxing scenario, then I think that like they're the ones that are going to be tuning in for like when, I don't know, Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua or the big stars are fighting. They'll tune in for those matches. And then other people will, and then we're the ones sticking around for when Chad Gable's fighting Ricochet. And like that match was great as well, but it's like, it's not anyone, I'm not saying that it's going to excite someone who's just searching around on YouTube. But yeah, this match was just unbelievably awesome.
Yeah, I definitely recommend for anybody that has not checked it out if you're going to watch any part of Dynamite, you at the very least, you need to check that out. Very, very good match. What's the CM Punk thing that Rob is filling us in on right here?
So I will read this out then. CM Punk has put onto Instagram the following.
He has since deleted, but he put this out there quickly enough for enough people to screenshot it. Okay,
so I'll read this out verbatim then, just to get it across. So from CM Punk, now deleted Instagram story. Sigh, I wasn't cleared to come back to wrestle yet. Then plan was to wrestle at the pay-per-view. I started and listened to Moxley's Rocky 3 idea. I explained how I'd never seen a Rocky movie.
Which is crazy.
Rocky, and thought the idea sucked, but if the boss wanted to do it, whatever. He said he wouldn't lose to me. I'd never experienced someone refusing to lose to me. I just laughed. I asked Tony if this was what he wanted. He said yes. He's the boss, so I said okay, but I'd need to be cleared first. They kept saying it could just be a squash, so I didn't need to be cleared. I scoffed at that. My health is more important. Dave Meltzer is a liar. Chris Jericho is a liar and a stooge. There were plans, but plans always change, but I'll never put a company above my health ever again.
So at the very least, if this is legitimately Punk tweeting this out or putting this on, Instagram? Is that what it was?
It was an Instagram story.
So, I mean, if that's Punk's account, then you got to assume that there's truth behind this, or he's completely making something up, and then that's another whole story that, like, holy shit, why are you making stuff up? But I would wager that this is probably true. if he says the plan was to come back at the pay-per-view, is he talking about coming up soon? Or is he talking about...
No, I think the plan was for him to not wrestle Jon Moxley and then wrestle Jon Moxley again.
To not wrestle him on Dynamite and to wrestle him at All Out. That was the original plan?
Right.
Or to follow out from All Out.
I think it would have been him and Moxley in Chicago at All Out.
Yeah. So I guess it's the Rocky 3 idea. So in Rocky 3, Rocky gets beaten easily by
Clubber Lang.
Yeah. And then he gets the rematch and he wins it after that one in a more even fight. So I guess that's the story that they're trying to tell. And he said that he didn't really like that idea, but he was going to go along with it. But basically said that he wasn't cleared to wrestle, and Tony said, "Okay, we're just gonna make it a squash. So even though you're not really cleared, you can wrestle anyway."
Which that seems like this is just a retelling of what happened on Dynamite then.
Kind of, yeah.
Because he lost to Moxley and then he beats Moxley at All Out, and that's the plan. So that he's just basically repeating what we already know that happened last year.
But the thing that's, I guess that's the standout thing that's different is the case that Punk is making the accusation that he was forced to work hurt.
Yes.
Which is a big accusation to make, because that is essentially saying, and again, if Tony Khan does do this, I don't want to obviously say that it's fine, because like multiple bookers have done this over the years, and multiple wrestlers have decided to wrestle hurt when they probably shouldn't have done. But the idea that Punk is accusing his boss of saying, I don't care, but like it's totally
it's okay
fine
to work hurt. Yeah.
If you're not 100%
take a
healthy.
DDT and you're fine.
But it also, I mean, he says, I thought the idea sucked, but his boss wanted to do it, whatever. He said he wouldn't lose to me. I'd never experienced someone refusing to lose to me. I just laughed.
Because Moxley didn't lose to him. Moxley beat him first.
Yeah,
as opposed to it just being like, okay, well,
he comes back at the pay-per-view.
We come back at the pay-per-view and then I just beat you and then that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can kind of get that for why Moxley took that stance, in the sense that he was there when Punk was out injured.
He would want to keep some of that value to him and not just be like, okay, well now you beat me and now we move back to where we were before. I could see that.
Yeah.
Or at least pitching the idea to it, you know?
Yeah. And the idea that he would eventually lose to him, but he gets the victory first because Punk isn't quite ready to come back and he gets in the ring too early, and Moxley's able to get the flash win on him, and then they have a more like traditional, conventional match at the pay-per-view, which Punk does get the victory. Yeah, I can get the sense of the story behind that. I mean, it's one of those ones where, yeah, I can see both sides of it. I can see Punk getting,
offended,
getting offended at the idea that Moxley just, refuses to do the job for him, if that's like where it's eventually going to lead to, if he's going to say, well, I need to get a win first. But I can also see that why he pitched that idea and why Tony went along with it.
What I'm confused about with this is he says they kept saying that it could be a squash, so I didn't need to be cleared. I scoffed at that. My health is more important. And then it happened.
Because
he says there were plans, but plans always change. I'll never put my company over my health again. But they did that. So,
and then he got hurt.
And he got hurt again. So
I might like to revise my statement earlier about him coming back.
Yeah, you might have to. I mean, he does say here, if you're going to take away anything from this other than just, hey, he's repeating why they did the Moxley win and then the Moxley loss kind of thing and all that. I think the biggest takeaway of the whole thing is he just says Dave Meltzer is a liar, Jericho is a liar, and a stooge. So Punk, at the very least, is not in good terms right now with Jericho. And considering Jericho has such a prominent spot in AEW, that doesn't seem like it's going to be a good relationship.
I mean, fundamentally, in this now deleted story, he buried Moxley,
Tony Khan, Meltzer,
Tony
Jericho.
Khan and Jericho,
Yeah. So maybe that's one of the reasons why he was covered on that production truck, right?
Yeah, maybe this is like a clear indication that they're just trying to separate all things from him, and now they'll try and double down their efforts to release. Maybe this is Punk's attempt to speed along the process and maybe force them to release him under terms that are more favourable for him instead of the company. So we'll see. There's a lot of ways they can go, but it seems to be more trouble than it's worth. And if this is all just part of a storyline, this is one of the ones where it's a case of, this is way too inside and way too just overall damaging for it to be a story. I mean, what would Punk come back and like feud with Jericho over this? Like, does Jericho be the babyface in that feud? Is Punk the babyface? Punk can't really come back as a babyface at this point after what he's said and done. But, we'll see.
I don't know. I feel weird about it. I wanted to double and triple check just to even see that it was legit. Enough people have screenshotted it from his story that it was. I'd also like to point out that Dave Schilling, the writer that had said, we talked about him last week, saying that Edge was supposed to come back in 2020 and all that, put out a tweet saying that he had seen the first episode of All Access and that fans were going to comb through this episode insanely, like some conspiracy theorists. So I feel very weird about how this all has come together since then. Like the All Access thing and how a lot of the backstage dramas that we've heard about are seemingly going to be played out on this show. Very weird timing for Punk to just decide to say this on Instagram. I'm intrigued, but I don't know. And I hope that they're not going to... I'll say this. At this point, I hope that it's all just real. Because if it's all just one giant story, it's so dangerous to do that in this era. But maybe that's part of the fun for him. You know what I mean? Being like, yep, you don't always know everything. You know what we allow you to know.
Well, that wraps up the hot tags portion of this episode.
Random, on a note that was unexpected.
Yeah. But we're going to switch over to the other half of this that would have been its own separate main event, but we don't have enough for it to actually be completely, an hour-long episode or anything, which is Wrestling with the Past, with a combo of one more match. And the only people that are confirmed for the Hall of Fame so far are Rey Mysterio, the Great Muta, and then what would have been another hot tag for this week, but of course, this is the way that things are playing out, Andy Kaufman. And I guess the best way for us to start off is to just go with Andy Kaufman here, because that is, we've talked about Ray, we've talked about Great Muta a little bit here and there. Andy Kaufman being inducted into the Hall of Fame makes so much sense to me. Obviously, this should have been done before, but it's Hollywood, so that's a good way to do it. I am hoping that Jerry the King Lawler is healthy enough that he can do the induction, because he is the only person that makes any sense to me. And if they had any backup plans, I don't know who that would be, but maybe you don't necessarily need to have King fly out to do the induction in person. Maybe they just record that ahead of time and they do like a little video package thing. That could actually speed up the show a little bit too. I don't know how they really plan on doing that, but I really like the idea of Andy Kaufman going in there.
Yeah, as a celebrity inductee, he's one of the ones that has the closest relationship and long-term relationship with wrestling, from both his on-running character of wrestling women in matches to, again, the big feud with Jerry the King Lawler, which is the thing that he's most remembered for, at least from a wrestling capacity. Yeah, I think that is a very befitting choice in a celebrity Hall of Fame, which is full of people who are very tenuous links to professional wrestling. He is a standout choice.
Yeah, I mean, he's deserved this for a while. My only sadness is that I don't know how healthy King is, but he belongs in this Hall of Fame.
Now, we had talked before about Man on the Moon with our triple combo episode of going over Mount Rushmore and Top Rope list, but if you've not seen the movie Man on the Moon, definitely check it out. Not only is it a really good movie, but it's got a great performance by Jim Carrey. The documentary that had came out, Being Andy, I think is what it's called, right? I think it's what it is. About them making the movie. That's actually a really good documentary as well. It's great for just a regular film. It's great from like a wrestling perspective. It does a really good job of portraying Andy Kaufman from like, I mean, I've seen documentaries and stuff about that before, even watching Man on the Moon. So they really kind of hit on a lot of that stuff really, really well. Jim Carrey, if they could get him to do some kind of an induction thing, that would be fantastic. I don't think that they could, but that would be awesome. As far as the wrestling with the past portion of this goes, and the one more match thing, the most I could talk about would be the Man on the Moon stuff with Andy Kaufman. I mean, outside of wrestling, he's got some great stuff too. I thought that the Mighty Mouse skit was really funny that he had done back in the day. I think the whole thing where he was taking people out for cookies and milk was funny. But he is mostly, of course, known in the wrestling space for the whole Jerry the Lawler feud and the intergender matches and picking up people in the crowd and all. If he were to somehow, one more match, for anybody who doesn't know, who hasn't checked out previous episodes, the idea behind it is whether they are retired or they passed on or whatever it is, theoretically in some Secret Wars Beyonder Battle World type scenario, you get to bring them back. For anybody who's an Avengers fan, there you go. Blueprint Project. That's something. If you could bring them back and you could have them wrestle one match with somebody on the current roster, who would it be? So as far as Andy Kaufman is concerned, on the AEW side of things, I don't know offhand, but if it's the WWE, which you would assume that would be the case, the first thing that I thought of, funny enough, was Sami Zayn. But I think Kevin Owens could be a really good option for that. I think the Miz could be a fun option for it. I could see them having fun with like Andy Kaufman picking a fight with somebody that's like way, way, way bigger than him to even like up the ante even more. So it's like a Braun Strowman. Could be kind of fun.
I think honestly, the first name, just based on his lineage and what he did in the past, my first obvious choice was Becky Lynch.
I didn't think about that. I like that even more.
He should wrestle a woman.
I like that even better.
I thought Rhea Ripley from WWE. That's what I thought of.
But since the fact that Becky Lynch calls herself the Man, I think that's...
I like that better.
Because he would eat that alive, really. Like the fact that like, it's a woman calling herself obviously he wouldn't go like super into that overall sexist character, but just the idea of like, you call yourself the Man, well, I'm a man who beats up women, so I guess I couldn't fight you. It's just like, well, that's that kind of approach. And so yeah, I think Becky would, and obviously she is great on the mic, so would be able to do some barbs with him.
She made him tap out with the disarm her, so that's like the perfect way to end that. Yep, that's the match. There you go. See, this is one of the reasons why this couldn't have been a full main event, because I mean, holy shit, right there you're like Becky Lynch, and it's like, yep, okay, never mind.
The AEW side, I would love to see him wrestle Orange Cassidy.
Orange Cassidy makes sense if you're talking about the idea of the Becky Lynch thing. I mean, Jade Cargill beating the shit out of him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Brett would be fun as well, because obviously he's great on the microphone as well. So there's a litany option, but I think
there's a match in there between him and Rio.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe like, that would be one of the matches to leading up to.
I think that there's something there. Like, take whatever criticisms you want to give about Rio and apply that to a match, and then have Rio kind of tie him up in knots to where he has to cheat to beat her. I'd watch that.
It would be a big one if they went. Obviously, it's not really WWE because she's not technically signed to WWE, but Brandy Rhodes.
That'd be fun.
You sold me on the Becky Lynch thing, though. I don't think anything could beat that.
That's probably the one that I'd like to see the most.
Well, obviously, I am down to do something based off of Man on the Moon. I mean, now, if we would have known this ahead of time, we might have done like a watch along of Man on the Moon or something. So maybe we do that sometime next week or so. Maybe that ends up actually being like a dark cast that we can do. I don't know. Next week, it's going to be too crazy. I should say the week after Mania. If you want us to do it, let us know. And we'll, of course, take that all into consideration. Let's go back and talk about Rey Mysterio and the Great Muta. Great Muta is supposed to be inducted by Ric Flair. Rey Mysterio most likely going to be inducted by Conan. We still don't know if Stacy Keibler is going to be involved or somebody else is. Maybe McFoley inducts her or somebody else. I don't know. Again, we're recording this on Thursday, so WWE has been tending to put things out there on SmackDown on Fridays. So we should hear at least one more person, probably Stacy, tomorrow night. But we obviously aren't going to talk about that until we talk about the hot tags next week around. But if we go with the Rey side of it here, Rey is not done wrestling yet. So we can't really have one more match when it comes to him. We've talked about the wrestling with the past side of him with the Superstar scores, but I guess we could mention it in this little twist. Who should retire Rey? Should it be Dominic? Should it be Santos Escobar? Should it be somebody else?
At this point, it probably should just be his son. But do you want to see that? Dom isn't the best wrestler yet. He might get there. He might never get there, but it would be a shame. But with everything that they've done, I think it would have to be him.
It would wholly depend on if he ends his career in WWE. If it's WWE, I still wouldn't go with Dom. I think you'd actually go with someone that you really are intending to push properly beyond just this one feud. Because fundamentally, Dom's getting better, but he's not going to be a future world champion, realistically. So you want to give that scalp to someone who could really run with it and use it as their big character arc moving forward. So maybe I'm trying to think.
Dragon Lee?
Actually. Maybe. I mean, that would be a great match. So you had that thing. I mean, it sounds odd, but maybe like a Carmelo Hayes. Or even like a Bron Breakker. It doesn't necessarily have to be a guy whose Mysterio style will take on the mantle of Mysterio. It would just be a guy that beats up, destroys Rey Mysterio and forces him to retire. If you look further afield, well, you've got Rey Fenix, El Hijo del Vikingo could be a great choice.
Yeah, he's like 25, I think they said, right?
Yeah. I would love that match. I just have to say, that's a good one. Or Jericho, if you were thinking of being somebody he worked with in the past.
Edge, maybe even. If you want to go as that could be like a double retirement match. Just have those two. Say we're just gonna have our final match against each other. But further afield, got Penta, Phoenix, got a guy like Dante Martin, or I'm trying to think of someone else who's kind of like a bit more of the super athletic, flippy style. Ricochet maybe in WWE as well. That could be a thing you could use to turn Ricochet heel.
I think if I had to guess one person that wasn't Dom in WWE, I'd like to see Rey utilized to get over a Carmelo Hayes, a young talent that you really think could be somebody. I would rather not the Monster Squash, because you just can never be sure about monsters, WWE, and how they play out.
I would say fundamentally, if I could choose anybody in wrestling to be Mysterio's final match, it would be Will Ospreay.
Oh, that'd be great.
Because Ospreay wrestles that style, but he's also significantly bigger than Rey Mysterio, and also has wrestled more recently in this more heavyweight style, while still blending in his high-flying stuff. And fundamentally, belt to belt, Ospreay is one of, if not the best wrestler in the world right now. So he would get the absolute best out of Mysterio. And I think he would be a guy that would utilize that scalp really well, being Mysterio's final match. But then I'd also look at guys like Kenny Omega. That would be a lot of fun if Kenny Omega faces him, because I don't think that match has ever happened. So that'd be awesome as well. Yeah, so that'd be awesome as well. Just think that he's pretty much in WWE, he's wrestled pretty much everyone. So he's going to wrestle Dom soon. He hasn't wrestled Santos yet, but they've kind of set the seed to them being friendly with each other. I think he has wrestled Ricochet already. So, again, it's just one of those things with WWE of, like, everyone wrestles each other at some point. They always go in like a little bit of a cycle. So it's hard to think of anyone outside of people from NXT that I'd be super excited for him having his final match against. My eyes will always be drawn to someone who's outside of the promotion that he's currently in.
I think if I had to go with anybody, I mean, there is the idea of Dom and some kind of like he beats him for the mask and that's how he retires and all, but it just seems weird if it would be Dom to a certain extent too, because it is kind of like, all right, well, I don't know. I mean, if he loses his last match to his son, that makes perfect sense. But if he's going to try to put somebody over to be the next Rey Mysterio, obviously, then Dominic's not quite in the same capacity. So maybe a Dragon Lee, maybe a Santos, maybe somebody else gets brought in. I don't know. But as far as the Great Muta is concerned, I mean, he just had his retirement. So the idea of one more match thing is a little bit crazy, but he fought Shinsuke on the road to that retirement. He had that final match essentially with him to a certain extent. So in this imaginary world where he's
final match.
Like, yeah, it's like that kind of answers the question. But let's just say
there's Ray. He talked a lot about wanting to fight The Rock. Not that The Rock would actually do it.
Yeah.
You know?
But I mean, if you had to, for some reason, he had to wrestle one more match. Anybody stand out to you guys?
In a Legends deal, I'd like a Rey Mysterio match. Talking like, I would be a New Japan guy. Like, it would be someone in New Japan that they think could be the next big thing or one of the next big things.
Yeah, Okada would immediately spring to mind just as, like, again, this kind of dream match scenario. Or Tanahashi, even. Again, just like as a more of a legend versus legend thing. If you're looking at an up-and-coming star to take on him from New Japan, Shota Umino would immediately spring to mind. Like, he seems to be the guy they're putting a lot of stock behind, so I think that would be a big deal. Of course, Ospreay, I'm always going to go for Ospreay in loads of those contexts just because of how good he is.
What's the story? What's the story, Callum?
Story is match. And that's all it needs to be in this instance. AEW, Takeshita would work. Takeshita, I've never seen Takeshita have a bad match with anyone, so that'd be great. Thinking someone maybe like Omega obviously would be great. There's Ibushi's out there. He's not signed with anyone, so he would be a lot of fun. Obviously, we saw that Nakamura already had the match. If you're looking over at WWE, actually, just one more in AEW. He should wrestle Sting. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Sting makes sense.
Yeah. WWE, Rollins would be interesting. I think that would work out well. Dragon Lee would be fun. Gargano would be good. Dragunov, I think, would be a lot of fun just because I think that he can wrestle that stronger style very well.
Baron Corbin.
Baron Corbin
but only if Corbin gets to retire him in a match that everyone is really, really disappointed about.
And only if Vince McMahon gets to appear on TV and say, fuck him.
I could see an argument for people that would say their go-to would be Great Muta versus Demon Balor.
That could work.
Yeah.
AJ. We sometimes like at the moment we're sometimes like just forget about AJ Styles considering the fact that he's been injured for quite a while now. But
I mean, he's the guy, isn't he? He put Taker out. He could put Mood out, and right.
Yeah, that would be. I think that would be a fun. I think that's probably like the best overall match that you could have is probably against AJ. It's kind of also a loaded thing with the Great Muta because does he wrestle his final match as the Great Muta or does he wrestle as Keiji Muto?
I would assume in this scenario, Great Muta, yeah.
Okay, if it's Great Muta, then like Tajiri would be fun if he was still around.
Yeah,
they have similar. I mean, Asuka.
I thought about it, like
some kind of mixed tag, yeah.
If anybody's going to try to make an argument for Shanky in the comments, let us know or something. But let's round this out with a little bit of speculation. I mean, if they do announce Stacy Keibler, let's get into that so that we just kind of go, hey, next week we already talked about it, you know.
Yeah, all the Stacy Keibler dream matches.
Stacy Keibler was not a wrestler in that capacity. She was obviously more of a valet manager type. But as far as wrestling with the past is concerned, I mean, she is more than deserving in the Hall of Fame in my mind. She obviously was an important character. She's a standout name. I don't think that she's got really these like Hollywood ties that some people are like, oh, she's going in because it's like, well, what has she really done in Hollywood? She hasn't done that much. It's not like she's been in 15 different movies.
Classic.
Yeah, it's not like she is anywhere in the same capacity, but I get it. And I think that she could have gone in any year for the most part. If she were to wrestle another match, I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that we have had people pop up in the Royal Rumble and stuff. I wouldn't really be super into the idea of her against anybody as far as being like, man, build a whole thing around this, but there isn't any standout person in my mind that I think could get a great match out of that.
No.
So maybe I would say just have her go up against Charlotte for the sake of it. But
well, what does anyone have to gain from that?
I mean, there's not much to gain in any of these.
Yeah, then you put her against like a Carmella or a Chelsea Green.
If you tell me to put her against someone to, like, in the same vein of like get someone over or something, it's Tiffany Stratton.
That's a good choice.
It's Tiffany Stratton goes on a raid where she beats all of the divas because she's the only diva that matters.
I'm down for it. You sold me on it.
Maybe Quincy Elliott was the diva.
Andy Kaufman. That's the last one.
In terms of Stacey going into the Hall of Fame, if she does go in, obviously it's still speculation at this point, but I mean, she's deserving in the same metric that basically you just had to sneeze in an episode of Raw to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. Although if you sneezed, Vince would probably be upset with you, so maybe not that. But like, you turned up for like a 5-minute match as a jobber, you're somehow eligible for a Hall of Fame induction. So I wouldn't say that she certainly, in terms of like the litany of women who aren't in the Hall of Fame, she's pretty far down the list. Like, she's not Sable, and she's not.
It's Sable for me. Like, where the fuck is Sable?
Yeah, no Sable. She's not Sable. She's not Victoria. She's not. I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to think of some other people that would be more deserving. I think Terry Runnels is more deserving than she is a Hall of Fame spot. Like, she was around in a much more active period for WWE in terms of popularity. No, like Cyndi Lauper or anything like that, or
Absolutely.
Some of the other.
It is crazy.
China on her own should go in into the Hall of Fame as well.
That I just don't think that they'll do. I think it's too sad for them, and they don't like to do sad. I think that's why Luger's in it, because he's confined to a wheelchair, and it's sad for them.
They'll just wait until he passes on and kind of induct him that way.
Well, no, Luger has said if they induct him, he'll get up and walk. I think
we won't if he's passed away.
Oh, that's why they need to hurry it up.
That'd be pretty impressive. But yeah, in terms of a match, yeah, you just would do some sort of like very gimmicky match. You go for comedy in that match rather than
quality. Yeah, you're not going to be like, okay, well, the story here is her against Io Sky and some kind of a dream match or something.
And you could try and hide her in a tag match instead.
Yeah, that probably would. Just have her alongside some other people, then she comes in, she does a couple moves, and that's about it.
Yeah, put it with some of the legends that can wrestle, like 6-woman tag with her and Trish and Lita against, like, I don't know, three decent heel women, like Rhea or Damage Control. Yeah, that's the trio that's in WWE right now. And the Outcasts if they go to AEW.
Yeah, I'm not interested in Stacy Keibler versus Saraya, for instance. It's not something that's on my list of, man, I wish we could have gotten that. But yeah, I mean, I think that it makes perfect sense that Stacy's going in. I do think that Cyndi Lauper makes more sense for this year, but
I think Cyndi Lauper should have gone in when T went in. I think Cyndi Lauper should have gone in a long time ago.
Yeah, this is a story that we've said for multiple different editions of the Hall of Fame.
Fuck, like, where's Cyndi Lauper in this Hall of Fame? She helped put this company on the map.
Absolutely crazy. But if they announce somebody else, we will talk about that next week. Whenever we do the hot tags, which is still kind of up in the air. Current game plan would be that we're going to do either the WrestleMania pay-per-view predictions or the ROH pay-per-view predictions first, probably Tuesday next week or so. Probably on Wednesday, we'll take care of Stand and Deliver. Maybe on Thursday, we might do another one. It depends on how much we split things up and how much we are able to kind of speed along with some of our predictions for certain things. Because at this point, I mean, like the ROH thing, I don't have much to say about, but it still has a bunch of matches. So maybe we do that Tuesday, maybe we do Wednesday, maybe we do Thursday. I don't know. We're going to get around to doing predictions for all that stuff. We're also going to have the hot tags. We're also going to do something of a watch along or review, pay-per-view point, blah, 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 for the ROH Supercard of Honor show. We are either incorporating that in with the Hall of Fame and SmackDown in the live watch along, or doing it some other separate way. And then we've got Stand and Deliver with the pay-per-view point post show that we're going to cram in right before WrestleMania Night 1. And then we got WrestleMania Night 1 pay-per-view post show. And then we got WrestleMania 2 pay-per-view post show. It's going to be a crazy week next week. So
I'm already tired. Thank you.
I'm tired just saying it out loud. But when we are doing all that, make sure you are joining us for the live shows that we do have there. And if you do want to get those email alerts to know when we go live, in case we do spontaneously decide to like, hey, look, we're just going to go with live predictions for the sake of it to cut down on the editing time or something, I don't know. Then if you click on the little notification, that little bell on this YouTube channel, that'll tell you when that is going to go up, because you'll get that email of like, hey, look, they're live right now. And then you can click on the link and everything. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Amazon Music or Stitcher or iTunes or Google Podcasts or TuneIn or whatever the hell you are listening on this outside of YouTube, then obviously we don't go live for any of those. So you should hop over on YouTube. But if you want to check out everything else that's happening and all, obviously the Marketplace is all over with the Redbubble and TeePublic stuff I mentioned earlier, the Patreon stuff. Show your support for Fanboys Anonymous over on fanboysanonymous.com and that YouTube channel and that Patreon and Facebook and Twitter. Check out the Blueprint Project and check out the second chapter of the Batman and Nighttime story. Check out that Dusty Rhodes contest that we got for the Funko Pop. Vote on the Smark Madness tournament. And naturally go to anthonymango.com and click on all the different things you can see there, because that is the link tree that puts my Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Letterboxd and LinkedIn and whatnot all in one space. So go to anthonymango.com or amangotree.com. Like me, because it'll boost my self-esteem. If you don't like me, I'll be sad. Thank you, Robert.
I like you. Don't worry.
And make sure that you are not only following what I've got going on, but what you are following on the Rob and Callum side of things.
On the Rob side of things, WrestleMania, I'm going to be busy. I don't know how much of the review shit I'll be on, but I'll be on all the preview stuff. Promise. And it'll be fun. Fightful.com, WrestleZone.com. Follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. DudeFelice.com, forever coming soon. Callum Wiggins, what you got?
So I have got, you can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Over on Spark Out Moment, you can check out the power rankings, which is very close to the end of this year's season. So you can see who will be on top of the rankings heading up to WrestleMania, because, well, there'll be a couple more up until the final week of WrestleMania, where we will determine after WrestleMania the top 10 for the start of the next season. And so it all begins again. And then also beginning again soon will be the Fantasy League, because at WrestleMania, that's it. That's the final points will be scored, and we will determine who will be the winner for this year's season. So only a few more opportunities for people to be picking up points. So make sure you're staying tuned for that and over at wwefantasyleague.com, or you can find it through the Smark Moment navigation. So
I'm gonna take it so serious next year. It's not even funny. Gonna whoop your asses next year.
I mean, I haven't figured out the rules next year.
Even better for me.
Yeah, so we got lots coming your way over this next week and a half or so. So stay tuned to smarkoutmoment.com and every other place under a mango tree for all that content. And we will see you on the next episode, I don't know which one it's going to be, but it's going to be some kind of pay-per-view point. So coming up in the next few days, we got more podcasts, but have your fun weekend. Enjoy SmackDown. Check out that Blueprint project and all the other things you should catch up on that we've done recently with Smark Out Moment and such. And we will see you when we see you, everyone. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.